Nope. I forgot to get rid of my start screen. Well, huge error right out the gate. Just how I like to start this show. What's up, everyone? How's it going? Not sure where we're streaming right now. It's like, I'm hearing that all the websites are down, but seems to kind of be working. So we'll give it a go. We got some jokes here, some news. Live from a studio apartment. This is missed information, by the way. Why are women becoming so violent these days? Does anyone know? Seems like there's been a recent uptick in female violence. Mystery, I guess. Yeah, so the shooter in a hockey rink has been identified as trans. Now, this comes just a couple days after the Canadian shooter was also identified as a trans person. Yeah, if this pace keeps up, we can no longer assume that the bulge in a trans person's pants is just a penis. Yeah. I'm afraid we're going to have to start patting them down. A little bit. We might have to do it, though. Well, Stephen Colbert claimed he was being censored from interviewing a Democrat senator by Trump's FCC. Yeah. Due to the FCC's equal time rules, the FCC said Colbert can still do the interview, but he also needs to do a Republican interview with 0 viewers. You gotta give fair is fair. No views for the Democrat. You gotta give no views to the Republican as well. Senator Randy Fine is being criticized for saying he would take dogs over Muslims. Yeah, people are critiquing him. And to their point, at least Muslim bitches are quiet. That one goes kind of hard. I like that one. He's an idiot, by the way. Let me clarify. We'll get into it in a little bit, but one of the dumbest things I've ever heard anyone say. All right, cool. So we're going to go over some news. It's like sort of a light news week. There is some stuff going on. There's some stuff we need to talk about. But generally just still... What's up with Trump, by the way? Has anyone noticed that Trump's been just like eerily quiet the last couple of weeks? I sort of took a break from streaming for a little while, and I was, while I was taking the break, I was like, well, this was a good time to do it because there's not really like anything popping off. There's no big news. And Trump's been oddly quiet. I don't know what's up with that. I did see a tweet earlier that he's maybe meeting with his comms director at the White House. They're going to be going over messaging, so we'll see. But hopefully everything okay with him. He's usually creating like 8 or 9 news stories per week, so it's a little odd to see. Okay, what we got going on today? So we'll start with Colbert. So Colbert, let me pull up Twitter here. Boom, boom, boom. We'll get to that stuff later. But Colbert today was saying on his show that he was censored. So his claim, well, this is from the Hollywood Reporter, they describe it. Colbert opened his show Monday by explaining the situation to his audience. You know who is not one of my guests tonight? That's Texas State Representative James Tallarico, who I've never heard of before. By the way, it was first time hearing of him. But I guess he's in a race right now, maybe against a Republican. And so Colbert was supposed to have him on a show, but Colbert explained to his audience that they were told in no uncertain terms by the network's lawyers that they couldn't have him on the broadcast. Okay, so this was a big to-do. You have James Tallarico here pointing out this is the interview Donald Trump didn't want you to see. His FCC refused to air my interview with Stephen Colbert. So they're calling it Trump's FCC, right? His FCC. Because actually when you look into it, the reason that he wasn't allowed to, well, it's not that he wasn't even allowed, it's just that his attorneys contacted him, said he shouldn't do the interview because there's an old FCC rule that governs like campaign finance and fairness in political campaigns, which says you have to have equal airtime for political candidates on television, right? For news programs, live TV. So if he's interviewing a Democrat person here, he has to spend equal time on the Republican candidate as well, right? That's the whole fuss. This Tallarico guy and Democrats are trying to frame it as, this is a Trump rule change and Trump came down and censored him. That's what Colbert was saying, right? Well, we find out later today, this news broke. I guess Colbert's own CBS just came out and spoke on it. They called out their own host. In a statement, CBS said Colbert was not prohibited from broadcasting the interview with the representative. The show was provided legal guidance that the broadcast could trigger the FCC equal time rule for two other candidates, including Representative Jasmine Crockett, and presented options for how the equal time for other candidates could be fulfilled. So I guess what happened is Colbert didn't want to interview, I'm assuming here, but I'm assuming he didn't want to interview Jasmine Crockett or the other Republican candidates. So he basically scrapped the interview from the show and is trying to act like it's some big censorship campaign. So this is a total Stephen Smollett deal. Totally fabricated. It was fabricated before this later clarification from CBS, but just a non-story turned into somehow by Democrats, as they always do, that Trump's an authoritarian and a dictator and he's censoring free speech. When really, if you want to look at it from this statement from CBS, it sounds like Colbert is actually the one who's censoring people, right? He doesn't want to give equal time to the Republican candidates. So he's actually the pro-censorship person, right? He only wants to interview his preferred party and that's it. So that's the reason his interview was canceled, or he scrapped it at least. There's, I think we have a little bit, I think Jasmine Crockett had something on this. Jasmine Crockett sides with Trump's FCC version of events. Let's see if that looks a little bit better. Yeah, kind of. It's good. Colbert's absolutely cooked. That's from, I don't know, Lay Wolf. I don't know who that is. Representative Jasmine Crockett confirms that Stephen Colbert was lying the entire time about the Trump admin pulling the Tallarico interview. And they make fun of the Smollett thing here. I'm guessing it isn't true that Trump yelled, "This is gut-filled country," during the attack. A reference to, I think that was Smollett who said that somebody yelled it was MAGA country when they were attacking him. It was all a false story. Anyways, here's Jasmine Crockett, I guess.
Not fully, and I'm waiting on a statement. I have done Colbert a number of times. If you pay attention, I've done Colbert a number of times, I've done The View a number of times, I've done Kimmel a number of times. I've done all these shows a number of times. We did receive information suggesting that the federal government did not shut down this segment, number one. That is my understanding, that the federal government did not.
It's just kind of boring me, to be honest. I'm going to cut away from this right now. For a public speaker, I'll tell you something. She's got to fill in these silences a little bit better. Holy God. Anyways, so the other big news from today, there was a shooting. I'm sure most of you have seen. There was a shooting at an ice hockey rink. Super, super tragic. Apparently a dad turned on his own family, shot, I think it was his son, his wife, maybe another person in the family. Killed them all at a hockey rink while the other kid was out on the ice, right? And then, of course, we just had, I'll pull it up here, just a few days ago. So this was the deal. Today it came out that basically the guy who shot up the hockey rink was trans, which is a pattern we've been seeing more and more often here. So we do need to discuss it. This was just a few days ago. The person on the left here was the Canadian shooter that shot up, I think it was a school over in Canada. They came out, or they were identified after the fact as being a trans-identifying individual. This is the person on the right from the ice hockey rink. There was Benny Johnson was talking about this. He has a whole list of these recent shootings that were trans shooters. He says, The Tumbler Ridge shooter was transgender. That's, I think, the Canadian one. Annunciation Catholic school shooter identified as trans. Nashville Christian shooter, Lakewood Church shooter, Colorado Springs shooter, Denver shooter, Aberdeen, Iowa school. Charlie Kirk's assassin, Tyler Robinson, he points out, had a trans-identifying boyfriend. Something even about Thomas Crooks with identifying with they, them pronouns. Here's some pictures of the dad right here. You have, this was Brandon Tatum. Brandon Tatum. Sorry. He's talking about how, I guess there were some statements from the family here. His daughter saying that her father was very sick. So people are saying that basically transgenderism is a mental illness, just being transgender, and it leads to things like this. That's kind of the working hypothesis right now online. What do you guys think? Do we have anyone in the chat? You guys can say your opinions, you know.
Shot my family.
Here's my thing. So I feel like it's more of a symptom of an illness than something completely brand new. Although there are aspects of it which I think are kind of brand new. But I feel like the recent trans shooters that I've seen all sort of fit the profile of previous trans shooters that I've seen in the past. I did a little bit of research on Grok because I'm basically asking it, like, what's the profile of previous trans shooters? You know, do they share anything in common with this recent spate of trans identifying shooters that we're seeing? Because I have this working theory that it's in the past you used to see school shooters, mass shooters who often identified as like goth, right? It's kind of a tongue-in-cheek theory, but it's all sort of the same type of person. It's somebody who's a social outcast, right? They seem to experience a lot of isolation or just not fit in with normal school life. And there's an outward manifestation of that, at least in the past, where they would dress up like goth, right? You have, who are these guys? The Columbine high school shooters, Eric Harris, Dylan Klebold. They were famously, like, when the pictures were released of them, I don't have those pictures here, from the tragedy, they were dressed almost like goth kids, you know, in these like big boots and trench coats and stuff like that, to where you could clearly see they were an outsider, you know. And here's some pictures of school shooters, mass shooters from sort of, I think this is before 2015 era, right? So they don't all fit the same sort of thing, but a lot of them you can see, just look on their face, they're socially awkward. I mean, this guy does not seem like he's going to fit in well with the normal high school crowd, right? So all sort of the same type. Grok went over some statistics for prior mass shooters. The gender, overwhelmingly male. You know, when we talk about trans shooters, there's a reason why it's never like a female who transitioned into a man that ends up becoming a shooter. I think that happened once, actually, with, wasn't that Aubrey Hale, maybe? But it's overwhelmingly usually males, right? Because biologically males are more aggressive. They're more likely to do something like that, right? But there's some other things that they point out. Common psychological behavior traits of any shooters, including trans, would be mental health symptoms. Many display prior psychological, behavioral, or developmental issues, especially depression. Suicidal ideation, I think, is a common denominator. So in the old school shootings and the new ones, mass shootings, you see the people generally off themselves right after the event, right? So these are people who are already not happy with life. They're already not happy with themselves. And they sort of plan on taking themselves out already. But just with them, there's something else twisted where they have some type of a feeling that maybe society is the problem. It's not them, right? So their last act before they kill themselves is to take other people out with them, right? which is what happened in the ice hockey rink thing as well, and the Canadian shooting. They both committed suicide right on the spot, right? There's also some narcissism involved, right? So the people who are shooters tend to be more self-involved, inflated sense of self or self-view, right? I don't know if I have the picture here, but what would you call this behavior? This is the person from the ice hockey rink at his son's graduation, right? Now, I have no problem with trans people, to be honest. I think if you want to do, well, you do whatever you want with your body, right? And you can be whoever you're comfortable being, as long as it doesn't touch children's decisions, right? I'm always against children transitioning or anything like that. But to me, when I see a photo like this screams that this person is attention seeking, right? And he may have other mental health issues, but to dress like that to your son's graduation is sort of, it's putting the focus on them, right? Whereas even if you're gonna come and be obviously openly trans, which is fine, you could wear something a little bit less, attention seeking than that, right? So there's a little bit of narcissism there, I think. Obsession with violence or past attacks, social isolation, relationship stressors, crisis or trauma history, right? So these are some common denominators. Now, I think in the past, you would see kids who were socially isolated and they would maybe dress goth or wear trench coats, and that was the outward manifestation of those symptoms, right? It was a symptom. But I think after the 2020 election, you had this recent rash of people becoming trans who I don't think otherwise would have gone trans. I think the Democrat Party has spent the last 4 to 8 years courting disaffected male youths. And I think there's two parts to it. When you see this recent spate of trans shootings, there are those that feel that there's like a militant trans wing, right? That is, it's like if you have a Democrat Party that's courting disaffected youth, but not only that, that's telling you that you are in danger, you're being discriminated against, you need to fight back, right? And your life is physically actually in danger, right? You're sort of developing an almost like paramilitary wing, right? So you do have this sort of militant strain, which you see in some of these shootings where, let's take the Tyler Robinson shooting, for instance, right? Indications, although nothing's proven yet, that he may have been persuaded to assassinate Charlie Kirk by a group of trans Discord people that obviously felt like Charlie Kirk was a danger to them, right? So there's that militant side of it. And then there's also the I think, mental trauma of it, which I don't think that being trans causes mental trauma. I think it's a symptom in some cases that the person is not happy with themselves or not happy with their life. It can be the outward manifestation of that. I'm not saying this applies to all trans people. And I think it's important to kind of delineate between old school trans, let's call them, let's say prior to like 2010, 2015 maybe, which was a much smaller percentage of the population that was transitioning, versus, let's call it radicalized or new wave, we'll say new wave trans, right? These are the people that were encouraged by the Democrat Party that not only recorded but exalted for being different. So all of a sudden you're a social outsider. You've always felt like an outcast, you're uncomfortable in your body. Maybe you hate yourself, right? You were told that not only were your problems not the problem, but actually society was the problem for you, right? You were doing everything right. You were just born in the wrong body. So you just needed to change yourself, right? And society needed to conform to you and accept you, accept your pronouns, accept your identity, and support that no matter what, right? So I think that there's a group of people that, and it's a small percentage, obviously. Not every trans person is going to wind up being a shooter, obviously, right? But there is a small percentage that I think was just really happy with themselves, shares this same kind of suicidal ideation of previous shooters, and their outlet in current times is not to go goth or to dress like that, is to actually transition, and then they get to be a specialized victimhood group that's exalted by Democrats. And I don't think it's helping that they are told that the world needs to conform to them, that the world's against them. I think that puts in people's minds that they are righteous in fighting back against that. So, yeah, I wouldn't say that the trans causes people to be more violent or to become shooters. I would say that in some cases it's an instance or a symptom of some underlying mental health issues, which have always been consistent throughout history with shooters like that. So that's my kind of breakdown of it, take on it. And what else we got here? Those are the big stories from today. That was pretty much it. So we might kind of wrap it up. Sorry, there's stupid people commenting on my Kick. I stream on Kick sometimes. Oh, the Randy Fine thing. I mean, I guess we should discuss. So I guess Randy Fine, was he a senator? I don't know if I have the actual tweet here. I'll probably try to pull it up. So apparently he was commenting. They're never going to have the original tweet. But he was commenting on somebody. Here's the tweet. If they force us to choose, the choice between dogs and Muslims is not a difficult one, he says. Which, if you understand the context of what he's saying, it still sounds stupid to say. I gotta say. I mean, I get the context. This is just about the dumbest way that you could phrase this argument. And why would you say that anyways? But I guess there was somebody, a Muslim, that had made the comment that we should get rid of dogs, or people should get rid of their dogs because dogs are unclean. And so this is a response to that, saying if they force us to choose, the choice between dogs and Muslims is not a difficult one. He's doubling down on this. I think Colin Wright has it right when he says it was pretty dumb of him to just post his response without context. He should have known how it would be used, which I totally agree with. And I mean, I don't even know that it's a great argument with context, to be honest, because you're just kind of saying that dogs are better than Muslims the way it's read by a lot of people. At the very least, if you want to read it, what he's actually saying, he's kind of saying that he would take keeping his dogs as house pets versus Muslim. He might call them invaders or immigrants, which is still a dicey argument. So, yeah, I'm not a huge fan of that response. He seems like an idiot to me, to be honest. Who was railing on him? Megyn Kelly was railing on him, just calling him a moron and stuff. So, I don't know. That's mostly the news today. I might do a little retake of... Should we do a retake of the joke? Sure. I'll do it after. All right, so that's about it for the show. I will catch you guys tomorrow.